This next question that's been submitted to us is about loneliness. So we've been asked, why do I physically feel lonely when I have people with me, but then I can feel normal around the same people at different times? So, really great question. Loneliness is an emotion that all of us can relate to at different times, but it doesn't relate to being physically alone. So, we can feel lonely even when we're surrounded by people. Loneliness is driven by a lack of connection where we don't feel seen, we don't feel understood, and we don't feel cared for. It's not necessarily about being physically alone, but it's actually more about that lack of connection. So, I've got a couple of tips on how we can manage this feeling of loneliness. And remember when I said loneliness isn't about being alone. So, my first tip is don't necessarily chase being surrounded by more people. It's about experiencing more deep, meaningful social connections rather than superficial and volume of connections. My second tip is to avoid poor substitutes. So, a lot of us, when we're feeling lonely, will scroll through social media for hours and you think that you're seeking out social connection or that you're distracting yourself, but actually sometimes it can make us feel worse because you get that kind of that comparator, the grass is always greener, and it looks like everybody else is having much more fun, that everybody else has got better relationships. Um, and it actually can make you feel worse. So be aware to kind of not to seek out poor substitutes. Excess use of alcohol, something else that some people will do as well when they're feeling lonely, hoping that it will facilitate social connection, but actually often it just makes things worse. It makes you feel more lonely the next day, and you realize that the social connections that you formed were really driven through alcohol, and they weren't really the kind of the same deep, meaningful connections that you might have formed if you were sober. And then finally, probably the most helpful tip is to build those social connections through activities that you enjoy. So if there's something that you, yeah, a particular hobby or an interest that you've got, or maybe it's running or music or learning a new skill, that can be a great way to form social connections through an activity, and especially something like volunteering, where you're going to get that extra boost of dopamine from having done something helpful. And I also think as well, there's a lot of other people who do volunteering. They're often good, kind, nice people. So great folks to surround yourself with.